Iran's defense budget for 2026 has surged to its highest level in years after the June 2025 war with Israel, signaling a deliberate choice to pour far more resources into the country's security and military posture than before. Officials in Tehran say overall defense and security spending has jumped by about 145% following the 12-day conflict, reflecting both lessons learned on the battlefield and a decision to dramatically expand deterrent capabilities across multiple fronts. The government has announced that total defense and security allocations for the 2026-27 fiscal year stand at roughly $9.23 billion, using an exchange rate of 130,000 tamons to the dollar to convert the proposed budget into headline figures. Compared with last year's allocation, Iran's defense budget has risen by about 145%, a leap that underscores how the state is prioritizing guns over other competing needs in the wake of fresh conflict and perceived external threats. Authorities have framed this huge spending surge as essential to strengthen national deterrence, arguing that only a more heavily funded military can manage the growing spectrum of security threats Iran faces at home and across the region. Tehran has also presented the higher defense budget as a tool for maintaining stability, claiming that a stronger Iranian security posture helps prevent wider wars in the Middle East by convincing adversaries that any attack would come at a very high cost. The 2026-27 budget bill sets Iran's combined defense and security allocations at about $9.23 billion, calculated at an exchange rate of 130,000 tamons per US dollar. Roughly $4.62 billion is earmarked for the Defense Ministry and Armed Forces logistics. The IRGC is allocated about $1.88 billion, reflecting its central role in missile forces, regional activities, and strategic deterrence across multiple theaters. Iran's national police and internal security arm receive around $1 billion to handle domestic order, border control, and public security missions. The regular army, Artesh, is granted roughly $670 million, a sum that analysts say is heavily squeezed once 50% inflation is factored in. About $423 million goes to the Intelligence Ministry, tasked with counter-espionage, internal surveillance, and monitoring external plots. The Joint Operational Command, Qatar Al-Anbiya Central HQ, is assigned some $323 million for coordinating major defense operations and air defense integration. The General Staff receives around $277 million to oversee strategic planning, force structure, doctrine, and inter-service coordination. The Supreme National Security Council, which sets overarching security strategy, is allocated about $23 million within the 1405 framework. Tehran has presented its higher military spending as a way to project power primarily within the Middle East, suggesting that stronger capabilities at sea, in the air, and through missile forces are meant to shape regional calculations and deter rivals. Officials repeatedly highlight ongoing international sanctions as a key factor in how resources are prioritized, arguing that external economic pressure forces Iran to focus defense spending on areas that most efficiently offset its technological and financial constraints. The jump in Iran's defense budget is consistently described by leaders as an effort to preserve deterrence, with a message that only a visibly capable and well-funded military can dissuade adversaries from considering new strikes or regime change scenarios. Figures attributed to SIPRI for 2024 indicate that Iran's outlays remain well below those of key Middle Eastern powers, underscoring a persistent gap between Tehran's budget and that of its wealthier neighbors. These figures place Iran's 2024 military budget at around $7.9 billion, leaving it trailing behind multiple regional states that routinely spend far more on advanced hardware and imported weapon systems. Israel's defense budget, by comparison, reached roughly $46.5 billion in 2024, rising sharply amid ongoing conflicts and reflecting the country's heavy investment in air defense, intelligence, and high-tech combat capabilities. Saudi Arabia remained the Middle East's biggest spender, with estimates placing its 2024 military outlays somewhere between $75 and $80 billion, powered by oil revenues and long-standing procurement programs. Turkey's defense budget stood near $25 billion, placing Ankara comfortably above Iran in global rankings and highlighting Turkey's broader ambitions as a regional military power with growing domestic arms production. The United Arab Emirates was estimated to spend between $22 and $23 billion on defense in 2024, maintaining a high-tech, well-equipped force despite its relatively small population. Qatar's military budget was put at roughly $9 to $10 billion, meaning that even this small Gulf state spends slightly more on defense than Iran did in 2024, underlining how far Tehran still lags in raw financial terms.